Yeah, how much are Metallica tickets?
Well,
I mean, it's well known, so you can say it.
We paid. I got 8 tickets for like $5,500. Wow. Yeah. And they weren't even great seats. I looked at everyone around us and I was like, "How did you guys afford this?"
Welcome back to another video. If you've just come home from a hard day's work, it's time to sit down, relax, and celebrate the success of Bert Kreischer and Tom Segura. Because if there's anyone in the Rogan universe that knows how to celebrate themselves, it's these two Muppets.
They reposted
me 3 times. Metallica reposted me 3 times.
Wow, what a guy. You know you've made it when you can fill a whole 90-minute podcast just using humble brags. What an achievement. But it's not all as it seems. Bert Kreischer's a family man, you see, and he loves to spoil his daughters. So he bought a whole bunch of tickets to the Metallica concert so they could all go and have a sick time together. But what happens when your own daughter doesn't roll like you do? What if she just wants to be normal?
And so she just wanted regular seats. She wanted to pick them out. She didn't want to do any of the backstage, any of the I hit up 5 Finger Death Punch. She's like, I don't want to go backstage. I don't want to do any of that. I just want my friends to be, I want to be normal with my friends. It's like, what the fuck is broken about this kid?
Ah, of course. She must be broken. Bert never disappoints, huh? So we're going to take a look at Bert's struggles as a rich and famous celebrity and how it's impacting his ability to bond with the people around him. And if you want to know just how bad it's gotten, I only had room to include about 20% of the clips I pulled out of this episode. Like, actually. But just before we get into all the cringe and carry on, a massive shout out to my 12,500 subscribers. The Cringe Rebellion is growing by the day. I should probably get some merch for you guys. Leave that with me. And also a very special mention to my ground level crew for always turning up in the comment section. I see you guys dropping bombs down there. I always appreciate your input. So look, let's get back to these Muppets in a cave. Bert's battling some demons at the moment because he's finding it difficult to leave the house and do normal things. Everyone just wants a piece of him. Just ask him, he'll tell you. And it's getting to the point where it's starting to drive a wedge between him and his daughter. Take a look.
I think she was a little freaked out that she would not look very normal to her friends. Because when you go to those events, as you know, like sometimes they roll out the red carpet, and they'll be like, "Yo," and I mean this sincerely. It's sometimes needed. Like last night, thank you everyone at Metallica that said hi. It was really pleasant.
Yeah.
But I had to separate from Isla because it was distracting from her and her friends' time.
Okay.
So I had to separate and just do pictures, and I did pictures for. I had to call it and be like, "Yo, the show's starting. Like, I gotta go." And so it was I got recognized an insane amount just walking to the car, and
Sure.
and Isla didn't want her friends to see any of that. That's why I'm not going Sunday. So.
Geez, the trials and tribulations of celebrity life. I'm just so glad we're all here to witness it. But look, on a more serious note, what is this podcast? No, actually, just think about that for a moment. What's the point of it? Basically, Bert and Tom sit down across from each other and basically have a catch-up that most people would normally just do off camera. They don't prepare anything, there are no talking points, they're constantly just pulling random stuff out of thin air. And if they run out of stuff to talk about, well, Bert just makes up some story.
We're driving down, and Leanne tells a story about James Hetfield. She was like, one time she was at she was a waitress, and this guy was like harassing her, and he's being a dick. And James Hetfield walked up to. She was like, no, I mean, he was still in Metallica, but he walked up to the guy and he's like, "Hey, how about you get the out of here before I take you out of here?" And the guy's like, "What?" And he goes, "No one talks to anyone like that. No one's allowed to talk to people like that." Leanne's just some waitress. I think at the Chateau Marmont, maybe. And she's like, and the guy's like, go f yourself. He's like, "I will take it outside right now." And he's like, "Over her?" And he's like, "Yeah, over her. Let's go." And the guy's like, "The man?" He's like, "Yeah, get the out of here. I'll walk you out." The guy walks away, and James Hetfield looks at him and says, "Sorry you had to deal with that." She was like, "It's okay." And he goes, "No, it's not okay. No one should be talked to like that." And he just walked away. She went back and said, "Can I buy you a drink?" And he went, "No, I'm fine. Thanks." Just don't you love when you hear good guy stories like on the DL? Of course. On the DL. Like, no one's supposed to know how good this guy is, and then it comes out.
Okay, there is no doubt in my mind that story is fake. He just made it up, for sure. Not because I don't like James Hetfield, I'm a massive Metallica fan. Well, maybe when I was 15, but just because Bert is known to completely make up stories, especially when they're about his wife. I made a previous video covering Bert's latest appearance on his wife's podcast. That's right, even his wife has a podcast. And half the time it was just Leanne correcting Bert and even calling him out for embellishing stories. And it seems like it wasn't just me calling BS on his James Hetfield story. Someone in the comments said, "It's always fun to hear Leanne's James Hetfield story and know the true version was a guy who looked sort of like him, told a guy who was being loud at the bar to be quiet, and that was the end of it." Bert's the guy at school whose dad could beat up your dad, the guy who has the better bike or went on the bigger holiday. Everyone knows that guy. And so with all this concert talk, Tom made an interesting observation, being the industrious entrepreneur that he is. Take a look.
Do you know how brilliant that is from a business, by the way, what they did for people that don't know? So it's called like the no repeats. So a lot of times when a band of that magnitude plays a city, they're like, we're doing Friday, Saturday at SoFi. Mm-hmm. You're a fan. You go, all right, I'll go to Friday, see the show. Well, on this tour, they're saying that, and when they go to a city and they play more than one, the two shows won't be the same.
So basically, this is kind of a cool idea. Instead of just getting tickets to a concert on one night, you get a weekend pass and you go on a Friday night for all their classic hits, and then on the Saturday night for all their newer stuff. So this obviously only works for older bands with a big catalogue of music. So if you've got the time and money to dedicate a whole weekend to seeing your favourite band, then yeah, I guess it might work. But Bert, on the other hand, he's not a mere pedestrian like you and me. Between his comedy brain and business intelligence, he somehow concocted this brilliant idea for his stand-up comedy.
Can I tell you what I wanted to do? And I didn't know if this would work, but I wanted to sell two shows. I wanted to do two shows, but do it in theaters, and to have the first show be all old material.
All the hits.
And then the second show, all new material. After Fully Loaded, I got offers from some of these bigger venues, outdoor venues going, yo, how do I get you here for 2 days? Because for them, it makes more sense to lock us down for 2 days.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to figure that out now. And I said, what if I did like a festival with like, say, me, you, Sebastian, Eliza, whatever. Like, I'm just saying, like, some people have a couple Netflix specials.
Yeah.
And the first day is all old material.
Yeah.
Like all the bangers. And the second day is all new material. Same comics, same new material. I couldn't get anyone to bite. Like, everyone was like, it doesn't make sense. Why would anyone want to see old stuff? I was like, I don't know.
Oh, that's a mad idea. Let's go see Bert Kreischer doing stand-up with Eliza Schlesinger.
But I had him on my podcast, and he was very sincere.
Okay, cool. I've had my mom on my podcast. You want to flex? I'm just saying.
I think he's very sincere. I think he's very idealistic.
Oh man, that never gets old. I could watch that on repeat all day. Anyway, back to Bert's deeply original idea for a 2-day comedy fest. He's such a thinker, old Bert. And it's a pity he couldn't get the suits to agree, because even Tom was on board to do something like this.
I'd be interested to see what a fan base responds with, because there's definitely people that are comedy fans that go, I would like to do that. Like, I'd like to see that. But you have to have them 100% on board with that, What are you doing?
I'll find out.
What are you doing?
Hey guys, we're curious. It's me and Tom.
What's up, guys?
If we did a 2-day festival, meaning 2 days at, say, like somewhere like Red Rocks, first night we each did about 45 minutes
of the hits,
all the old stuff, and the second night did all new stuff. Would you buy a 2-day pass for me and Tom? That's our question. Answer in there, and then we'll have the answer by the end.
Alrighty then, so let's see what some of their listeners thought. Number one selling point of the 2-night old new Tom Bert gigs, skipping the first night of Bert so you don't have to hear the machine bit. I'd be open to the idea of buying tickets to Bert's show if he was doing other people's material. Jeez, that's brutal. The problem with Bart's idea is that the entire 2 hours will be him telling the machine, yawn. You cannot convince me that if Bert did the 2 shows, he would tell his machine joke at only one of them. You know he would end up adding it to his new material. Wow, these are his listeners. Brent's compulsive obsession with FaceTiming guests at the mere mention of their name is remarkable. Man, he's something else. Geez, okay, sounds like it might not be a great idea. We'll have to bin that one for now. So then with all this business talk, Bert felt like he needed to get something off his chest. And hey, a video about Tom and Bert wouldn't be complete without one of them complaining about poor people.
You know, sometimes, and I mean this with love, but sometimes you'll get the fan that comments on how much your ticket costs, and it'll be shitty. I remember the first time it ever happened to you, to me, meaning we were in Philly, and this dude's like, dude, Tom, dude, he's charging $30 a ticket. That guy, who the does he think he is? I remember being scared. I remember being like, ooh, don't charge more than 20. And then I talked to you, and you were like, that guy, what did he look like? I go, he looked like pretty homeless. And you're like, yeah, I don't want him at my show. You're like, if you don't like me for an extra $10, you're like $10.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, man, when you love something, I don't mind going out of pocket a little bit for the experience.
Sure.
I don't mind going in and seeing a little extra. Like, we got not the best tickets, but we paid way more than anyone was paying for my show. Way more.
In case you didn't quite catch that little bit at the end, and no, you're not mistaken if you did, Bert Kreischer just compared his stand-up show to a Metallica concert. Like, he actually just said that in broad daylight into a microphone with cameras on. And as I was scrolling through the comments, I found one that perfectly captured my thoughts. Love how millionaires are going, I don't mind spending some extra cash for the experience. Ah, those damn helicopter rides, hey Tom? I've said it before and I'll say it again, these dudes are just completely out of control. I seriously don't understand the point of their podcast anymore, and as one of their viewers put it, this feels like when your estranged brother finally comes home for Christmas and is giving you his life update. These are basically just conversations you'd have with a friend off camera. In this whole episode, there were several occasions where Bert was literally just sitting there trying to find something in his phone to send to the computer guy so he could pull it up on the screen for everyone to see. Like full on just dead air. No one saying anything, just scrolling through his phone.
I have it on my phone. I'll just send it to you. It's probably so much easier. I'm so not. Ben's like a good dude. Like, he doesn't curse. Yeah. He's like, doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, doesn't do anything. He's just a good dude. Halston, I'll just send it to you. It'll be so much easier. So, Bert's MacBook Pro. Let's see. That's me. No. Here we go. That's me. Okay, so this is, nope, not edit, cancel. This is share and share. Here's me and Bennisgrins to, no people found, Halston. Hang on. Okay. General, airdrop, everyone, photos, Halston, to Halston? Okay.
This is peak podcast, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't get better than this. Why bother planning out a few clips and topics to talk about before you start recording when you can just do it while you're sitting there at the table? The worst part is they actually have staff. They've got people working for them. They wouldn't even have to do that much work themselves. Just send them the links before the show or give them the timestamps or whatever. How hard is it? These kind of unprepared podcasts only work with one or two guests on, so you can bounce the conversation around and fill in the dead air with bits and pieces. Instead, we get two middle-aged has-beens fumbling through their phones like your grandma trying to find something that made them laugh from 3 days ago. But hey, no one's forcing you to watch it. That's what I'm here for. So let me know what you guys think, drop a comment below and I'll pin the best comment. Hit the like button and become a subscriber so you get my uploads in your feed, and I'll chat to you guys in the next one.
Be pretty fun to do the hits.
It would be so fun to do the hits, and then I'll come up and tell one of my favorite jokes of yours, and then you can tell the machine.
I'll be like, when I was 22, I got involved with the Armenian mafia.
All right, so I'm getting this steak.
Okay.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to Flagrant.
We're back.
Yes. We did it.
Yeah.
Did a little comedy festival, soft piece in the Middle East. I don't think it's a coincidence. Shout out to Flagrant, bro. We got the best fans in the world. Our fans didn't give a flying if we had to shout it. All these other podcasts, all these comedians crumbling, trembling. I love seeing these motherfuckers going on there to little shows and saying like, well, but America's bad too. Well, shut up, dork. All these comedians are terrified of their own audience.
And it's just like people are always trying to build themselves up by taking other people down. Mark Maron, don't say it.
I mean, I don't get it.
He's pathologically jealous. Like he's like literally mentally ill. And the Theo thing really drove me nuts because that sent Theo into a real spiral.
Did it?
Yeah.
The stand-up comedy scene is in a shambles at the moment. These guys can't stop taking L's. At this point, it's getting harder and harder to keep up with the pace of all the bullshit flying out of their mouths. Nobody is coping harder than tall and funny scientist Joe Rogan. The cognitive decline that we've witnessed over the last few years is accelerating recently because now we're starting to see him breaking his own rules. He's always preaching about not reading the comments and not watching or reading any criticism about him, but now it's getting so loud that he's clearly having trouble avoiding it. And I think it really started after he released his comedy special last year called Burn the Boats. That's when all his years of comedy talk since the pandemic came back to bite him in the ass. He hyped up his comedy club for years, started having more and more comedians on the podcast, and anointed himself the king of comedy. Then his special dropped, and Elephant Graveyard dropped his review, which now has over 5 million views, and ironically, it's been the elephant in the room ever since. To make matters worse, Elephant Graveyard's most recent video on Rogan's Doomsday Cult has almost 3 million views. And the thing is, for Rogan, he's been the #1 podcaster in the world for years. He used to average over 10 million views an episode, but after the pandemic broke his brain and he decided to move to Austin and build a little comedy bubble to protect his own ego, his podcast numbers have decreased by over 80%, averaging around 2 million views an episode across both YouTube and audio. Those are still big numbers, but instead of sitting comfortably at #1 with no one else coming close, every month he's jumping around the top 5 depending on what else is trending. This is what he refuses to talk about, and it's why Spotify basically halved his pay when they reviewed his contract at the beginning of last year. The commentary and criticism genre now has a wider reach than Joe Rogan's podcast, and that's trending across all his buddies' podcasts as well, except for Kill Tony, which isn't a podcast. But there's also the whole Riyadh Comedy Festival situation that somehow caught some of the biggest comedians in the world completely off guard. Bill Burr is basically fighting to save his reputation, and meanwhile, like you saw in the intro, Andrew Schulz, who also went to Saudi Arabia, is now bragging about how he's the only comedian to not be copping a backlash, which completely backfired because on that very episode, his fans completely turned against him in the comments section. The hypocrisy and delusion on display from these guys is so much fucking funnier than anything they've ever said on stage. So stick around because I'm going to take you through all of it, including a little cameo appearance from Brendan Schaub towards the end. What all of these guys don't realize is that he's where they're all going to end up. That's the end game for them. Remember though, if you want to see my longer form uncensored breakdowns of the Saudi situation with clips I can't use here on YouTube, plus full reviews of comedy specials, head over to my Patreon via the link in the description, where you'll find a bunch of exclusive content, including my review of Brian Callen's latest comedy special coming this weekend, plus so much more. So go and check that out if you're interested. I also want to give another massive shout out to all of you who went over to my new channel, More Cringe, and subscribed. If you want to see my videos covering drama outside of the podcast universe, head over to More Cringe and support the channel to help get it off the ground. Like I said though, Andrew Schulz is finally back on Flagrant after being MIA for a couple of months, and he started flexing on all the other comedians out there who are copping a massive backlash from their fans, because apparently his fans all had his back, or so he thought.
I will go perform for my fans wherever they are on the whole planet. Okay, people don't decide where they're born, you idiots.
Even the Middle Eastern ones, though?
Well, maybe not them, they're beneath me. But like maybe just the white countries. Because that's what they're all saying, right? They're like, how dare you perform in non-white countries that don't have the exact same rules as us?
Because what they're saying is you're taking money from the government.
Good, my fans get a discount.
There you go.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay.
You're welcome.
So you'd rather I charge the oppressed people full price? The people you think are oppressed pay full price?
It's just ridiculous. Honestly, you either have fans that have supported you. They also share your clips. They also watch your YouTube specials. They watch your Netflix specials. They do everything to give you the life of your dreams.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I'm super grateful. So wherever the they are in the world, I will go perform for them. This whole backlash, it's like you don't need to explain it by like the bad things America has done. Like I see all these people doing these mental gymnastics because they're like trying to justify. You don't have to justify shit. Do you have fans there? Go perform for them. Yep. No fans around the world are beneath you performing for them for things out of their control. The reality is like there are people there that did not decide to be born there. You don't get to decide where you're born. You also don't get to decide the rules of your government when there is a monarchy or a dictatorship. So you don't punish those people for things completely out of their control when they've helped you live your dreams. It's like absurd. I see people go, but what did America do to the Native Americans? Whatever it did.
You know what I mean? You're gonna say that today, dude. It's Columbus Day.
My boy.
Come on.
I perform at the Chumash Casino. Okay. I perform it all there because I'm going there and doing jokes for them.
Andrew Schulz calling out the mental gymnastics of the people criticizing comedians who went to the Riyadh Comedy Festival and then spending half an episode of flagrant bitching and moaning about it and taking the moral high ground is one of the most Andrew Schulz things I've ever seen. He's like that one friend everybody has that always asks you for money, but then brags about how well they're doing and how they're planning to buy all this shit. I don't think there's another podcaster out there that can perform the mental gymnastics that Schulz has over the past few years. This is the guy who claimed a streaming service was forcing him to edit out jokes from his comedy special and then proceeded to self-publish on his website, brag to his fans about how much money he made, and then dropped it on YouTube for free a couple of weeks later. Andrew Schulz's moral high ground is built on thin ice. The guy is one of the biggest free speech grifters on the planet. Yet here he is bragging about how other comedians are dealing with audience backlash, not realizing that the comment section on this very episode had completely turned on him.
I saw so many liberal white comics talking on us. First of all, we never been the truth to power guy.
That's the reason why we don't have any pushback, barely any pushback, is because we've never been the virtue signaling type. We've never been the ones out here. Like, there are people that are getting pushback, and like, based on some shit that they had said in the past, I kind of get it. Like, I'll be honest, I kind of get it.
Yeah.
You know, like, Bert is getting all this pushback, and it's like the first time I've seen in his career him not, like, aware of why it's happening.
Yeah.
Like, I saw him on Conan, and again, it's a clip, so I don't want to take clips out of context, but he's like, oh, these people are, like, sanctimonious. And it's like, bro, you did say that Beyonce sold out for blood money.
Yeah.
For going to, like, an oil state.
Yeah.
And then you went to an oil state. So, like, now, the criticism for that comes from other things. They're just using this as a tool of leverage against him because they're upset at him for other things. But they're not wrong that it's hypocritical to call Beyonce one thing and then you go do the same thing. The personal accountability we can have is like when we had politicians on the pod, we thrust ourselves into the political discourse. That's something we could take accountability for. That's something we got to go, okay, if we have politicians on the pod, we have to know that there are people who their entire identity is politics, and any moment they can to point a finger and to mudsling and to dehumanize, they will take advantage of that. So I feel like that's on us for that. That being said, we've received almost no criticism. You know what I mean? Bad Friends is in shambles. That comment section is crazy. You know what I mean? Like, all Bobby did is went there and showed his dick.
Yeah.
Showed his dick, and then
It's
Santino,
progressive.
he did an accent, and then they came back. It's not that crazy.
Yeah, it's
Leave
progressive.
him alone. You know what I mean? Show your dick, Santino, do the accent, and then you come home. It is what it is.
That's so funny, dude. Yeah, well, look, we got the best fans.
That is true.
We have the best fans on earth.
All right, so let's check in with their fans real quick and see what they're saying about this episode of Flagrant. Schulz got to be the most bothered, unbothered person on the planet. Andrew acting like he went to Riyadh to do a benefit gig for slave workers who watch his YouTube clips is so Andrew. Schulz has now literally turned into the type of person he hated 5 years ago. Andrew gaslighting us that we don't care is classic Schulz behavior. The first 20 minutes of this podcast is the boys' justification for taking that money. The mental gymnastics are actually hilarious. Bro saying us Flagrant fans don't care, all I see in the comments is fans caring about it and criticizing it. Andrew and Akash trying to gaslight their audience like this has to be one of the biggest L's in Flagrant history. And they weren't just gaslighting, they were bragging about how they got away without any criticism compared to Bad Friends and Bill Burr, while their own fans were dishing it out to them in the comment section. At this point, this shit writes itself. This is exactly what happened to Brendan Schaub all those years ago when he hit back at all his comedy haters and punched down on them because they were supposedly jealous of his looks and success, not realizing that he was slowly creating literally the biggest group of haters in human history. Tom Segura and Bert Kreischer are in the same boat too. After years of Tom punching down on his audience for even the slightest criticism against him, and Bert being an insufferable egomaniac drunk on his own fame and fortune, and obviously too much alcohol, but now Andy and the Toy Story boys have joined them. After years of abusing their audience's trust and selling them bullshit to line their own pockets, it turns out the free speech warriors were just common opportunists this whole time. And if that wasn't enough, check out the sheer arrogance on display from Schultz's side piece Akash Singh. The guy's acting like he's a made man in the mafia because Schultz let him tag along to Saudi Arabia.
All right, boys. Anyway, any other discussions about the fest, Saudi Fest?
Nah, Mark Maron, you ain't shit. That's about it.
Jesus.
Yeah, I'm tired of this mother.
Shit. Not just him. A lot of these comedians ain't. I've been seeing a lot of comedians trying to separate themselves from Austin lately. Have you seen this?
Yeah, of course.
I'm seeing a lot of these comedians really trying to create distance from Austin, what's happening in Austin. A lot of comedians that use Joe and his millions of followers to boost their careers, that went on there to promote their specials, that performed at the club, really used Joe's power and influence that he was very generous to give them. And all of a sudden there's a little internet backlash post-election, and they're trying to blame the manosphere for the election, not the fact that they ran a fucking dead guy and a woman that can't talk. It's and now I see these comics kind of vocally talking shit, that they would talk all this shit, by the way, behind closed doors, because it's what comics do, but real rat weasel shit. Because you let this guy enrich you, you used him for his followers, and now you see a situation where they're getting backlash, and instead you pile on for self-salvation.
Yeah.
Not get your boys back and refute some of the rumors that exist on the internet. Now Joe can no longer do something for you, or Tony can no longer do something for you, because that's where it really comes down. When going on Joe Rogan made you a millionaire for 6 years in a row, all these comics were quiet. They were complimentary. They were being so sweet because they wanted to get in. Now that going on Joe Rogan once doesn't automatically give you a career, and now that Kill Tony is focused on more character-based people, now they no longer see their salvation in these two people. So now they're having these honest conversations. Oh, they're saying the R word a lot. I'm seeing these comics. It's just so two-faced snake weasels, little rats.
Yeah.
And this is kind of who they are, though, to be honest. These are the conversations they have in private, and then they kind of change face. So maybe it's even better that they're finally have the balls to be authentic. Nah, that's my guy. I'm never gonna never. I never pile on against him. That's a real motherfucker right there.
Andrew Schultz defending Joe Rogan like he wasn't one of those guys that blew up and became a millionaire off the back of his JRE appearances. The reality is, Schultz is correct. The numbers don't lie. He's just too afraid to say it out loud. Rogan's podcast has fallen off. Like I showed you in the intro, JRE's numbers are down by around 80% on average since the pandemic years. His reach just isn't big enough anymore to give his guests the boost that guys like Schultz, Tom, Bert, Hinchcliffe, and Schaub used to get. I mean, Brendan Schaub is the most frequent guest in JRE history, and his podcasts are surviving off bot views and the fumes from his storage unit garage. But there's also comedy fatigue. During the pandemic, people had the capacity to absorb more content, and while it was all fresh, podcasts like Flagrant 2 and Two Bears One Cave were popular because people had the time and energy to sit back and listen to dudes being dudes. I mean, I was one of them. But after a few years, when the hype started to die down, people started realizing that these guys just aren't that funny. I've reviewed all of their latest specials from last year and this year over on my Patreon, and every single time I was so surprised about how far they've fallen off. And I'll be honest, Joe Rogan has never made me laugh. I've never been a fan of his comedy. But Andrew Schulz and Tom Segura have had their moments before. Some of you might remember when I used to be a massive fan of Tom Segura's stand-up. But over the last few years, as they've raked in the millions of dollars and shot to fame, their comedy has completely turned to shit. I mean, Schultz's recent comedy special, Life, was absolutely fucking terrible. The edgy and controversial comedian did a whole hour about going through IVF with his wife. And since Rogan built the comedy mothership in Austin, he's had so many random comedians on his podcast, and people are just switching off. All of this is starting to get under Rogan's skin. His podcast numbers are falling, the internet has completely turned on him, and he failed to convince everyone that he's a tall and funny comedian. Now he's being dragged into a tit-for-tat with his biggest critics, completely abandoning the advice he gives everyone else who comes on his podcast. Joe started reading the comments again.
It's just like people are always trying to build themselves up by taking other people down. And it's historic. It's been going on forever. It's always the case. And it's normal. I've done what they do. I've hated on people. I definitely did when I was younger. It's just not smart. It's, you know, your identity gets too wrapped up in conflict. And it's just like super unhealthy.
Well,
super
we know
unhealthy
people
for you.
our age who are still doing that.
Of course. Don't
Comics.
Mark Maron, don't say it.
I mean, I don't get it. You know, I'm like, I don't know.
I get it. He's sad. He's sad. He wants other people to hurt. He's pathologically jealous. Like he's like literally mentally ill.
I don't know about mentally ill, but Mark Maron's definitely jealous of Rogan's success. He's even openly admitted it. But the funny thing I've noticed about guys like Rogan, Schulz, and Bill Burr is that when they get called out, they always go after the character of the people criticizing them. They never go after the actual points that are being raised. Whenever Rogan talks about his critics, he always defaults to calling them jealous haters and never debates their actual arguments.
Then over time, obviously I became more famous than him and more successful than him. And he does not like that. He hates that. And the only time we were cool was when Mark was number one. I started getting more successful. And then my podcast passed his. Then my podcast became number one. And then the Spotify deal. And that's when he started talking shit about me. The Spotify deal was a real problem. And that's when he started coming after me. And it was about vaccines. Like, so he was talking about me on stage about vaccines. It's like, by the way, everything I said was correct. The people that I had on my podcast were like Robert Malone, who got criticized. He has 9 patents in the creation of mRNA technology.
But he's a scientist.
Very well
Accredited
published
scientist,
and accredited
yeah.
scientist.
Slow Joe not realizing that Brian Callen was low-key trolling him after what happened last time is fucking hilarious. Callen made sure to emphasize that the guys Rogan was talking about were all accredited scientists.
So let me ask you a question, Mr. Joe Rogan, Mr. Scientist. Are you saying
Don't
that we shouldn't
don't
have...
do that. Don't call me Mr. Scientist. I'll start mocking you, and it's so much easier to mock you. Please
yes.
stop.
No,
You
I
don't-
won't. I
No,
won't.
no,
I
no.
know
Brian,
you think it's
Brian,
just...
Brian,
I've read,
Brian,
I've heard Susan
Brian.
Humphreys.
This is a long conversation that we're not going to have on this podcast
Right.
because I'm going to get angry because I've researched this for years.
Right.
Let's just
But you're not a scientist.
I don't have to be a scientist
do.
to know that.
Yes, you do.
No, Brian, shut the up. I don't have to be a scientist to read research. Brian, you don't know what the I'm saying. You don't.
Well, I know because you don't want to talk about it.
Brian, I don't want to talk about it in the middle of a podcast because it'll completely derail the podcast.
The open-minded comedian who is prepared to talk to anyone and listen to their point of view is easily triggered by the slightest criticism. But again, all of these little hissy fits and dummy spits that Rogan's been having lately are all a result of the pressure building up from the growing criticism of his podcast, the declining numbers, and his stand-up comedy being widely ridiculed. Like, he's really been going hard on Mark Maron lately, and as we saw earlier with Schulz, his buddies are rushing to his defense too. I think when Mark went on Bad Friends with Bobby Lee and Santino and got almost zero pushback from them when he was shitting on Rogan and all of his friends, that was the breaking point for Joe, because that's one of the biggest and most successful comedy podcasts at the moment, and they're based out of LA. They haven't really bought into the whole Austin comedy scene, and we know how aggro Joe gets whenever a comedian refuses to acknowledge the undeniable superiority of the comedy mothership. It almost seems like Rogan's trying to send a warning shot to anyone else who thinks they can criticize him publicly.
He also lies. Like, one of the things he lied about, he did a podcast with Howie Mandel, and Howie Mandel asked him if he had problems with comedians. Like, no, I don't have any problems with any comedians. I've never had any problems with comedians. Like, what are you talking about? He's had a problem with every single comedian that's more successful than him. Bill Burr, Louis C.K., Dave Chappelle, me, Tony Hinchcliffe. And the Theo thing really drove me nuts because that sent Theo into a real spiral.
Did it?
Yeah. Yeah, well, Theo went into a spiral, and that was a big part of him getting attacked was Maron talking about him on his special, saying that he'd have Hitler on his podcast. Well, why is he saying that? Does he think that's true? Does he think that Theo has anybody on his show, including Bernie Sanders?
He's learning. He
He's
wants to learn.
Here we go again with the fucking gatekeeping. Joe Rogan, the king of comedy, tells everyone what they can and can't joke about. That bit in Mark Maron's special about Theo Von interviewing Hitler was funny as fuck, especially the line, "I get it." Absolutely spot on. Meanwhile, Joe's biggest fan, Tony Hinchcliffe, is out there pushing the hackiest stereotype jokes and cheap one-liners anyone's ever heard, live from the mothership. The hypocrisy is oozing out of the sides of their mouths. And I covered Theo Von's crash out on Patreon earlier this week, where I went through his long response to what happened and broke it down. Not once did he mention anything about Mark Maron's joke. In fact, Theo's issues started long before that, according to the man himself, so it sounds like Joe's projecting his own issues with Mark onto Theo and fishing for sympathy from his audience, which, as an almost 60-year-old man worth $500 million, is wild. I can't believe after all these years, after all the success that Rogan's fallen into, he's still sitting there coping over why everyone hates him. I mean, is that nice? And speaking of, as I said earlier on in this video, Brendan Schaub is the final form for all of these guys. This is what they have to look forward to. Bappa blew up before most of them, and now he's the model for comedy and podcasting failure. This is what he had to say on his 20,000 view podcast about the Theo Von situation. And if you can get through this whole clip without so much as cracking a smile, let me know in the comments below and I'll drop you a heart, because this shit had me in stitches. By the way, don't mind the background noise, it's just the air conditioning he's got running in the storage unit.
Before we get to the fighting, one more thing. I see a lot of people out there, a lot of people reaching out to me like, "Yo, talk to your boy Theo. Hopefully Theo's okay." And then a lot of you are hating on Theo right now. Let me tell you something about Theo Von. Theo shot his special, right? Theo shot his special and was having some issues with the material, was going, behind the curtain asking for taglines, and they're shooting for Netflix. So it was a bit of a mess. Those of you piling on Theo right now, you ain't shit. You ain't shit. Let me tell you something. I've been in those green rooms. I've been around the most talented, most successful comics in the world for a very long time. None of them touch Theo Von. Theo Von is once in a generational talent. Did he have a bad night? Yes. By all standards, by all metrics, he had a bad night shooting his special. That doesn't mean Theo isn't funny, Theo isn't talented, Theo isn't special, Theo relapsed. It means none of that. It means Theo had a tough time shooting his Netflix special. What is it, his fourth, fifth special? One night doesn't define Theo Von. Y'all need to back the up. If you want to hate on anybody, send it my way instead of Theo's. I don't give a fuck. Back off Theo, I'm telling you. Back the off Theo. He's the funniest person, bar none. I don't care who it is. No one's more talented than Theo Von in the world. Bar none, the funniest person you will ever meet.
Thank God Schaub cleared that up. All we're waiting for now is to hear what Ja Rule thinks. And don't get it twisted, Brendan absolutely loves seeing Theo going through a rough time. After I cut it off there, he went on to list all the other times that Theo was having issues, just to remind everyone. Like the time he rage cried because Brian Callen's career was derailed after multiple women made allegations about him. Bappa has this strange way of pumping up his buddies while simultaneously reminding everyone about their deepest issues.
It drives me nuts that he's not up there with those guys. He's better than 99% of them. And you want to outcast him over some bullshit? That's what I don't with. That's what upsets me.
Buddy, nobody's talking about Callan's allegations except for you. You're the one who keeps bringing it up. The sad part is, Rogan's on the same trajectory. He's getting caught up in the criticism and gossip instead of following his own advice and ignoring all the mentally ill haters. That's half the reason his numbers have crashed. Most JRE episodes now are just Rogan ranting to his buddies about the same 5 talking points. He used to have experts on and talk about all sorts of interesting shit, but now he's so full of his own ego that he'd rather listen to the sound of his own voice through the headphones. The whole stand-up comedy world right now is collapsing. It's a bunch of aging alpha males trying to convince us they're still relevant while their audiences quietly move on. These guys built massive followings off authenticity, but the second they got rich, they turned into the very Hollywood phonies they used to roast. It's not about comedy anymore, it's about control, influence, and ego maintenance disguised as free speech. Joe Rogan's turned into a reaction channel for his own downfall, Bill Burr's lecturing us about morality from a Saudi Starbucks, Andrew Schultz is drowning in denial while pretending his fans still love him, and Brendan Schaub, the prophecy, is sitting in his storage unit chirping like the canary in the coal mine. Comedy has never been this fake. These guys used to preach about being fearless truth tellers, but now they're absolutely terrified of losing relevance. They've all turned into propaganda mouthpieces. Comedy isn't collapsing because of cancel culture, it collapsed because comedians stopped being funny. Anyway, remember to check out my Patreon for
The Roswell crash of 47?
Yeah. I don't know. That one, I'm not, I don't know. I don't know. Seriously, I don't know. You're looking at me like,
It's an interesting one.
You just looked at me like,
Come on, bro.
Come on.
If you know,
Tell
you
me.
wouldn't tell us. That's the problem.
Or would I?
No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't be able to.
There's a whole segment of society out there that believes that I'm just here to push disinformation. Right? That's my job.
All right, guys, we're back with our favorite ex-CIA agent, Mike Baker. This was his 19th appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience, which has to be a record for a non-comedian. Baker's first episode was number 541 way back in 2014, so he's basically had 2 appearances per year for a decade, and this guy still does my head in. First of all, why does he hold his cigar like this? Now, I'm not a cigar smoker, so I googled how to hold a cigar, and I couldn't find one image with someone holding the cigar the way he does, which makes you wonder, as a former CIA agent, you'd think he would be trained in how not to attract attention to himself, yet here he is holding a cigar like a tool. But hey, like I said, I'm not a cigar guy, so maybe that's a legit way to hold one. I don't know, and let me just say thank God JRE is back on YouTube. The comment section is getting out of control, but in a good way. Mike Baker bugged the room and he comes back every few weeks to change the batteries. Whenever Mike Baker is on the pod, you know the entertainment will be in the comment section. When I saw the thumbnail, not this effing guy again, then click just to read the comments. Joe's CIA handler reminding us who owns us. Remember, there's no such thing as a former or retired CIA man. Joe's quarterly check-in with his CIA handler. Mike Baker, finally back, was wondering what the CIA wanted me to think. So clearly, people are sick of this guy and his boring-ass talking points. Within the first 12 hours or so, the views weren't as great as some of Rogan's other recent episodes, and even Rogan was looking for a way out by the end of it. However, the question everyone wants to know is, who exactly is Mike Baker? Is he really Joe Rogan's CIA handler, or is he just another grifter in Rogan's orbit? I'm going to answer this question by the end of the video, so stick around, there's a lot to talk about. But if you're new here and you end up enjoying this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button and give it a like as well. That way you won't miss out on any of my uploads.
I wanted to ask you this before I forget.
Yeah.
When you were working for the agency, did you guys, I know that there is a program where they use special effects makeup to change someone's appearance. Have you ever seen that in person?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
How does it look?
Yeah. It gets better all the time.
So
right?
could I go to a concert? Like, could I sneak into sneak into a concert with a rubber nose?
Yeah. No, we have a disguise unit at the agency, and I'm super proud of them. And was the benefit of their expertise on numerous occasions. Because you might guess, I mean, I'd spent almost all my time with the agency overseas.
So they blended you just like on Team America World Police? Remember?
Yes.
Bro, show a picture of that guy.
One of the greatest. Hans Briggs. Hans Briggs.
How good is that movie?
Yeah, it's the greatest movie ever.
They're the best.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's
it's John
the video.
Mendes. Yeah.
So this is from
Yeah.
the disguise. Wow,
Yeah,
look at
she
the
was there.
pores.
She was, senior officer there.
Were you ever talking to someone? I think this motherfucker's wearing a disguise.
No, but I've talked to people wearing disguises. I've had the full overhead mask.
Look how good that is with sunglasses on. With sunglasses on, that's crazy.
I never did wear the monkey outfit. And here's the thing about this is that because what they did was they went to Hollywood, and there's been this liaison for years and years between the agency and Hollywood when it comes to special effects, when it comes to makeup. I'm not giving away any secrets. This stuff is all out there, and you get a light disguise. It's for a brief cover for action. You're not going to be engaged in this.
So what
Sometimes,
would be a light disguise?
like a rubber nose. It could be like a wig. It could be facial hair. Change of glasses. Could be just a change of hair color.
So the whole time I was watching this, I thought to myself, remember that guy who went on Rogan's podcast with Josh Dubin and then dismembered some guy a few weeks later and his body parts were found in his freezer? Yep, that man was Sheldon Johnson. And the reason why it came into my mind was because of the disguise he used to throw off the police, which was caught on CCTV. Now, if you want the full breakdown on what happened and who this guy is, you can go and check out my video covering the details. But then a few minutes into this discussion here about disguises, Rogan actually mentioned Sheldon Johnson and his wig.
Did you see that I had a guest on the podcast that came with my friend Josh Dubin, who works with criminal reform and getting innocent people out of jail? So we had this guest that came on, and then after he was on the show, wound up killing somebody, cut some dude's head off, and
Yes.
And the unfortunate surveillance footage where he tried to wear a blonde wig and walk around.
Yeah.
It's like crystal clear that this dude was wearing a fucking wig.
God. Yeah, that was. Yeah, that's a hell of a story.
Crazy story. I was explaining that to my daughter last night. This is what happened.
God.
I love how Mike's reaction seems like disappointment rather than shock. You can tell him and his team watched Joe's podcast pretty closely and felt like Rogan let them down by slipping up and having the next American Psycho on the show. And this wasn't actually the first time Rogan addressed the freezer killer on his podcast since it all went down. A couple of weeks ago, when Andrew Schultz's side piece was on the podcast, Rogan went into a little bit more detail about the whole situation and tried to justify the craziness of it all.
I've done a ton of podcasts with Josh Dubin, who used to work with the Innocence Project. They find people that are wrongfully convicted and help them get out. We've had a bunch of those guys come on the podcast, including one guy who came on who was actually guilty. He was guilty before, and we knew he was guilty, but he got 50 years.
Right.
And then he was talking about he turned his life around, and his a month after he was on the podcast?
Yeah.
How long was it after he was on the podcast?
Yeah.
2 months? Maybe 2 months? Homie didn't understand new HD security cameras. Like, this dude put a blonde wig on. They got crystal clear footage of him with his goatee on, wearing a blonde wig, carrying some dude's head.
How sold were you in the room with him? How good was he at selling himself as this reformed person?
So he didn't kill anybody in jail. And then he's out now, and he's got this new lease on life, and he's out, and he's trying to do something different with his life. When you listen to his explanation of what happened, why he went to jail, some dude owed him money. Some dude, some drug deal, and the guy was like, "F you." So he found the guy, and he pistol whipped him, and he robbed him.
Okay.
And he got 50 years for that.
Right.
He was a habitual criminal, for sure. Should he have gotten 50 years for that? Well, I don't know. I mean, it seems like when he got out, he was kind of a bad guy.
Yeah,
but was that because he spent 25 fucking years in jail? And
so you're saying, did prison make him much worse?
Did prison make him much worse? Because it certainly can with some people.
Yeah.
But we've had people on that were innocent, and prison made them amazing. I mean, something about like the constant studying and the accepting your situation in life, even though you were innocent. They lost 20 years of their life for something that was bullshit. complete bullshit. And then you find out that the cops and the prosecutors who were involved in their case had done that to many, many, many people. That's another thing that people need to take into consideration. How f***ing dirty some people involved in prosecuting and convicting people are.
Yeah.
Yeah, that explanation from Rogan is absolutely wild. I knew when all of this came out that he'd be saying something along those lines. You know, the whole idea that because he spent over 2 decades in prison, that tormented him because he didn't belong there. So when he came out, he was even more damaged than when he went in there. Now, I want to get back to Mike Baker in just a moment, so I'll say this quickly. If you watch the actual episode with Sheldon Johnson, he clearly still had that gangbanger mentality. You could tell he was the same person he was when he went into prison, just from the way he saw the world and the stories he told. I honestly think that Josh Dubin let Rogan down with that one. He would have spent a lot of time with Sheldon, and with his experience with criminals and wrongfully convicted felons, he should have figured out that this was the wrong guy to bring on JRE. Anyway, I thought I'd mention that because Rogan brought it up with Baker, and I hadn't really addressed Rogan's comments in the aftermath of the arrest yet. But back to this episode, the thing I find so funny about Rogan's conversations with Mike is just how much Mike rambles about politics. He seemed to be pretty hung up on the Israeli-Palestine conflict, which he kept looping every conversation back to, and just going on these endless rants pretending to represent every side of the argument. And he also rambled about the Russia-Ukraine war, and you could tell that Rogan was getting pretty sick and tired of it all, so he found the perfect opportunity to derail Mike's epic rant.
The White House is saying, no, we don't want to escalate, so don't do that, right? Now, the other side of that coin is if you over the Russian energy infrastructure, what does that do to oil prices around the world, and what does it do to gas prices at the pump when you're in an election year? I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist.
Oh boy!
But Macron is over there saying, well, you know, if Kyiv asks, I can see putting French troops on the ground in Ukraine.
He's trying to distract from the fact that his wife's a man, right?
Yeah.
Bro,
I like that. No,
that is the wildest one I've ever heard.
Yeah,
I'm so confused by that one.
Oh God,
I've tried to look into that one. I really have, and to my own embarrassment, I've looked into it. This person, this woman that he's married to, even. I can't believe it. Even if it's a man, they had a relationship when Macron was 15.
Yeah,
and she was 39. That by itself is wild.
Yeah.
Because if it was the opposite, if it was a 39-year-old man who was a teacher and a 15-year-old girl who was a student, this would be horrific.
The best part was how Rogan didn't just mention Macron's wife in passing, he committed to it and started diving into the details. We've heard him talk about the age gap between men and women being treated differently based on if the guy is the older one or the younger one in the relationship. But what I don't seem to understand is why Rogan keeps having Mike on the podcast. Maybe he thinks that he's going to get some inside information from him. Others speculate that Rogan has some deal with the CIA to have Mike on twice a year to push their talking points. But the real question is whether Mike Baker is actually a former agent or if he's still active.
Some conspiracies are real.
Exactly, yeah.
Some of them are real.
Oh, yeah.
My favorite one is the Roswell one, because if that one's real, the Roswell crash of 47.
Yeah. I don't know. That one, I'm not, I don't know. I don't know. Seriously, I don't know. You're looking at me like,
it's an interesting one.
You just looked at me like,
come on, bro.
Come on.
If you know,
you
wouldn't tell us. That's the problem.
Or would I?
No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't be able to.
There's a whole segment of society out there that believes that I'm just here to push disinformation. Right? That's my job.
Yeah, there's definitely something suspicious going on here. I've put in a lot of time listening to the Mike Baker episodes, and so many other JRE listeners have noticed this as well. His talking points are so long-winded, and it's not that they're political, it's more that he tries to water everything down to relieve the anxiety people have. That's what makes me so suspicious about his current role with the CIA. Now, obviously, I have no evidence of his connections to them other than what he says publicly on the podcast, but let me show you guys exactly what I mean. Here's a clip from 3 years ago where they were talking about a whistleblower that blew up the internet. I actually had to edit this down quite a bit because Mike was umming and ahhing so much. So take a look and I'll pick it up straight after.
Here's my take on it. I think he believes what he's saying, right? I think he has gone out there. I think I'm legit. Look, he was whatever, 14-year veteran of military. And I think he went out and he talked to enough people. I don't think he's out there like spinning a yarn and is worried that now he's gotten over his skis and he's said, too many things. And maybe the difference between us is I spent, a lot of time with the government, and sometimes it can be really, really dysfunctional. And it goes back to keeping a secret. The idea that they could have this what essentially is a covert action campaign, to spread disinformation about what they actually know, right? When the easier thing to do is just to have the program and just keep your yap shut about it, not go for a disinformation campaign, not try to muddy the waters by doing this, because in a sense, you're just creating more conversation around it. You're creating, now there's a little bit of a, movement within Congress to say, we have to do this, now we have to. So they're going to look perhaps for a misappropriation of funds, right?
So you can see how good he is at taking a really safe, middle-of-the-road perspective and then immediately deflecting and going into unnecessary administrative details to avoid answering the question. Now, I've always said that conspiracy theorists give the government too much credit. It's hard to keep a secret. People break all the time. And I guess they were talking about a whistleblower there, right? But let me show you another clip from 5 years ago where he almost completely ignores Rogan's questions about the CIA withholding information from the public and instead decides to plug his new show.
When they do release things, like long after, like I was reading something, I forget what the case was about, but it was something about how the files won't be released under the Freedom of Information Act until 2080. Mm-hmm. Well, how do you...
Yeah, I know.
How do they make that distinct? Like that was the thing with the Kennedy assassination, right?
And sometimes they roll it over, and it's not even then. So some information comes to light periodically, and so this does look at this show will be looking at some historic, but a lot of current things that are going on, and where the money goes. Right? What are we spending our money on? I was lucky to be able to work with some really great people on the production side, but just also going out there and meeting some of these cats. They're just the shit that they do is even after being around a while as I have, it just amazes me.
So I only edited a few seconds out here and there to make it flow a little bit better, but that was pretty blatant from Mike. He completely deflected and avoided Rogan's question, which I think as a former CIA agent who supposedly doesn't have any ties with them anymore, he probably should have an opinion on this, especially if he's going to come on the biggest podcast in the world twice a year. So that's why there are these two camps. On the one hand, like I said, there are the people who think he's clearly still linked with the CIA, and either Joe unknowingly has him on because he thinks they're friends, or there's actually an arrangement there between Rogan and the CIA. But then there's the camp that think Mike's just a grifter and he's convinced Rogan he's a smart guy so he can keep plugging his security company to tens of millions of people on the podcast.
Well, you're here because you're a nice guy and you're a smart guy and you actually know what you're talking about. So I don't. I know what I read and I go, oh my God, what does that mean? And so I can have you in here and you can explain things from a guy who actually understands the you had the best explanation of what's going on in the Middle East I've heard yet.
Well, thank you. I appreciate. Do you mind if I do now on the heels of that? Do you mind if I do a little shameless marketing?
Oh, there's some shameless marketing.
Okay, so we've got the President's Daily Brief, the podcast. You talk about Hamas and the Israeli conflict now, and there's a minefield here. Actually, one of my managing directors for my company, Portman Square Group, for all your information and security needs. Thank you. One of the managing directors knew that I was going to sit back down with you, and they said, "Look, I know you're probably going to want to talk about Hamas. Is there any way you can do it right without pissing off people?"
That's cute.
Yeah, I know. That's what I thought.
All right, so this is how I see it, and just to be clear, I have no evidence of this. This is just my opinion from watching a bunch of Mike Baker episodes on JRE. I don't think there's an actual agreement between Rogan and the CIA where Mike Baker is the intermediary or the handler and Rogan agrees to have him on twice a year, otherwise they'll shut him down or whatever. I think that's a little bit far-fetched, but I definitely believe that Mike still has ties to the CIA, and either his security company is an extension of the agency or they let him have it as a front. That would be a classic CIA move. just have a think about the way Mike talks about wars and conflicts and anything else Rogan brings up. He's always offering the safest take, he's always watering down any government involvement in conspiracy theories, and he constantly shits on whistleblowers or anybody suspicious of government programs and activities. But as for the idea that he's grifting as well, he kind of reminds me of a Barry Seal-style character who the CIA controls, but lets him keep the money from his exploits. And think about this though, right? Do you think Mike Baker's typical client would be a JRE listener? Like, surely most of his clients are corporations or high net worth individuals. I doubt they're the type of people who are listening to Joe Rogan's podcast